So, friends, we are ready for the last session today. Let's welcome Dr. Tamogna Sarkar from the Department of Philosophy at Jadavpur University, and he is, author of many highly acclaimed articles on different aspects of Indian philosophy. And it's good to know that he will be speaking on Prāmāṇyavāda with special reference to Jainism. This morning, we had the opportunity of listening to talks on Prāmāṇyavāda in Nyaya and Mimamsa. We also did listen to Buddhist idealism, and now we are here. We are looking forward to Dr. Sarkar's talk on Prāmāṇyavāda with special reference to Jainism. So over to you, Dr. Sarkar, please.
Thank you, Nirmaloda. And thanks to the Bhaktivedanta Research Institute for inviting me again to speak on Prāmāṇyavāda. So, is the screen visible?
Yes, absolutely okay.
So my topic for today's lecture is Prāmāṇyavāda with special reference to Jainism, though I will be also talking about the theory of Prāmāṇyavāda in Nyaya and Mimamsa, but in comparison to that of Jainism. So Pramanya is a property of Pramana. We all know that. Etymologically, or etymological analysis of the term Pramana shows that it can mean both the source or process of a veridical cognition, Prama, as well as the result of that cognition, as well as the result of that process, that is the veridical cognition itself. So Pramana can mean the source as well as the Prama itself. It is the etymological analysis of the term Pramana, two different type of voices. So in the context of what is known as Pramāṇyavāda in Bharatiya Darshana, the term Pramana is used in the sense of Prama, or veridical cognition itself. So Pramanya, in the context of Pramāṇyavāda, means the property of veridicality or correctness, Pramatva, of an awareness. Determination of Prama is required prior to the determination of its sources. Pramattavadharan is required for Pramana Avadharan. There is a translational issue whether Pramatva constitutes truth of an awareness. Personally, I believe that it is so, but discussions on it would go beyond the present context. So for the present purpose in this presentation, I accept a less loaded translation of Pramattva or Pramanya as veridicality, not as truth in the present context. But in a broader sense, Pramāṇyavāda also includes discussions on non-veridicality of an awareness, of Pramatya. Discussions on how the veridicality and non-veridicality of cognitions are manifested, and how the veridicality and non-veridicality of cognitions are generated constitute the broader subject matter of Pramāṇyavāda. Specific subject matter of the theory and a more well-knit formulation of the problem concerned will be explored in the course of this lecture. Reals, promeos, accepted now this slide explores the necessity of discussing Prāmāṇyavāda. Reals or promeos accepted in a philosophical system are determined through accepted veridical cognitions and its sources. So reals cannot be determined without accepting prama and pramanas. Semblance of veridical cognition, that is non-veridical one, cannot determine what is real, what is promea, even though non-veridical cognition also reveals an object, and in most cases reveals it with certainty. But semblance of veridical cognition cannot determine what is real. So a universal doubt on the veridicality of a cognition would block the building of a philosophical system from the very outset. Any pramana-based systematic darsana must address and try to remove the possibility of a universal doubt on the veridicality of a cognition prior to building a system. That is why pramana-based systematic Bharatiya darsanas respond promptly to Nagarjuna, Jayarasi, Sriharsha et al. Throughout different historical periods. Now, what constitutes veridicality or correctness of a piece of awareness would depend on the exact formulations of its definitions of prama in various Bharatiya Darsana systems. But generally, prama can be accepted, or pramatya can be accepted as the veridicality of an awareness. The veridicality of an awareness, that is pramatya, consists in invariable and non-contradictory conformity with its object. We can generally accept that what is veridicality, what is pramatya of a cognition, that it consists in invariable and non-contradictory conformity with its object. Sometimes it is called abhyabhicharitatva, abhyabhicharitva, ortho abhyabhicharitva. But here abhyabhicharitva does not mean the relation between reason and probandum in case of in case of inference. Here it is means the non-contradictory conformity with its object, with the object of cognition. So a veridical awareness non-contradictorily represents the exact nature of its objects, and that is how it is called veridical. It is in very general sense. So with these preliminaries, I am now entering into the debates on the cognition of veridicality first, and then pass on to the debates regarding genesis of veridicality in a cognition. So I proceed in most part of my presentation in a question-answer conversational format and try to be as jargon-free as possible. I think it would help us to understand the insights of the debates, which sometimes go wayward in post-Gangesa period. Now we start from a universally accepted premise. That is, cognition reveals at least its objects, vishaya. This is universally accepted by all schools. If there is anything called cognition which don't have any object, so it cannot be in the purview of the Prāmāṇyavāda. So Nirvikalpaka cognition and others is not in the purview of Prāmāṇyavāda, if it is at all said a cognition. The universally accepted premise is that cognition reveals at least its objects. There may be other things which are revealed by cognitions, and we may also say that these are also object, the other things, but at least its objects, we can safely say it. Now, question 1 on this premise is that, does the cognition reveal itself while revealing its object? Answer to the question can be given in positive, in confirmation, that yes, cognition is auto-manifesting or self-aware. There are various schools in Indian tradition that accept cognition as Swaprakasha, as auto-manifesting. Shankha, Buddha, a section of a Buddha, Jaina, Prabhakaras, Mimamsakas, and Vedanta. There are different formulations of self-awareness or auto-manifestation, but they all accept, in a sense, that cognition is auto-manifesting. Now the question on this, depending on this answer, that yes, cognition is auto-manifesting, the question arises, does every self-aware cognition grasp its own veridicality? Answer to these questions may be given in positive, that yes, veridicality is the nature of resultant cognition, Shambhita, and produced by the same set of conditions that generates the cognition. So veridicality is the nature of cognition, resultant cognition, Shambhita. They generally, Prabhakar, what I mean here, the Prabhakar generally distinguish between Jnana and Shambhita. Here, Shambhit means resultant, that follower. It is veridical and produced by the same set of conditions that generates the cognition itself. So each resultant cognition, each Shambhit, is veridical according to the Prabhakar Mimamsa. So Prabhakaras answered this question in affirmation. Or the other schools, Vedanta schools especially, may say that since the cognition is manifested to the changeless consciousness on its own with the complete compliance to its object, the self-aware cognition grasps its own veridicality. So the positive answer of the camp of the supporters of auto-manifesting consciousness, auto-manifesting cognition may take two different ways. One is taken by the Prabhakaras and another is taken by different Vedanta schools, though there are variations in the formulation of this kind of Shatopramanna, this kind of intrinsic validity. Now, the answer to this question, that the question was, does every self-aware cognition grasp its own veridicality? Prabhakaras and Vedanta schools answer it in positive. But there is a section of the Buddhists who answered the question in negative, that no, even if each cognition is self-aware, it is not veridical by default. Even a false cognition is self-aware. So truth has to be confirmed later. It is the answer of a section of the Buddhists. The answer of the first question, that is question 1, does the cognition reveal itself while revealing its object? The first this question can also be answered in negative way. What we said so far is the positive, or is the positive or affirmative answer to the question. Now the negative answer is also possible and given by many schools, that no, cognition requires another cognition for its manifestation. Now the question arises, is this cognition of cognition perceptual? The answer may be given in affirmation, that is yes, this second order cognition is a perception, and a special type of perception called internal perception. So the cognition of cognition is an internal perception according to this view. The question arises, does this internal perception grasp its objects, that is the first order cognition's veridicality? This question is very important in the context of Prāmāṇyavāda. Can be answered in, we will see, in 3 ways. The first camp answers in this way, that yes, always internal perception grasps its object, or grasps not only its objects but also its veridicality. Always. This is the camp of Murari Mishra. The internal perception or internal perceptual cognition, in the process of revelation of its object cognition, always grasps its veridicality. The first order cognition is revealed with its veridicality by the internal perception. This is the answer given by Murari Mishra. The answer can be given as no, and not only no, never. Never does an internal perception grasp its objects or the first order cognitions veridicality. Why? This camp, we know that it is the camp of Naiyayikas. First, for the Naiyayikas, it is not necessary that each and every cognition must be manifested. Some cognitions themselves may remain unregistered or unknown or unmanifested. Secondly, even when it is registered, even when a first order cognition is registered, it is not necessary for cognitions which are habituated to have a redundant certification of veridicality to enable those cognitions to instigate effort in the cognitive agent. First of all, it is not necessary at all to register a cognition, to manifest a cognition. Ajnato satta is possible. The knowledge may remain unregistered. Secondly, even when it is registered, it is not necessary for the cases of habituated cognitions to have a redundant clarification of veridicality to enable pravrittis, pravritti, nivritti, and upeksha. These are the usages of cognition. But since even when it is not necessary, but since truth is not natural to cognition, according to Nye, since truth is not natural to cognition, though in cases of habituated cognitions, veridicality, confirmation of its veridicality is not necessary to instigate pravritti, but since truth is not natural to cognitions, there will be some instances of cognitions whose truths are open to doubt, even after the original cognition, that is first order cognition, is grasped or manifested by an internal perceptual cognition. Even when the cognition is grasped through anubhavasaya, there will be some instances of cognition whose truths are open to doubt. Only in these cases, these are the cases of, according to Naiyayikas, these are the cases of unhabituated cognitions, which are not repeated frequently. So only in those cases, the cases of unhabituated cognitions, a certification of veridicality is required to block doubt about its veridicality, so that the cognitive agent gets motivated to act in accordance with the original cognition. So the motivator is the certification of veridicality in case of unhabituated cognition, but the pravritti, but the only necessity for this certification is to block doubt. Pravritti always emanates from the original cognition itself. Next, the third point is that in the internal perception of cognition, no factual relation is revealed. In anubhavasaya, according to Nye, no factual relation is revealed. In an internal perception, I have the cognition of a pot. Cognitive properties of thisness, potness, and their cognitive predications to a property possessor are grasped. These are all cognitive properties. But the factual relatedness of thisness and potness to an external thing, and grasping of which, the grasping of factual relatedness makes a cognition veridical. That cannot be the object of internal perception. That cannot be the object of anubhavasaya. The factual relatedness, Prāmāṇyavāda sambandha, that cannot be the object of internal perception. Because Prāmāṇyavāda sambandha cannot be a cognitive relation. But anubhavasaya grasps only a cognition. Its relation to the objects is not direct, it's indirect. Through non-ordinary perception, to non-ordinary relations, objects, external objects are only grasped by the mind. So veridicality of a cognition, according to Nack, consists in the actual representation of the relational structure of a fact. Since internal perception cannot grasp the veridicality determining relation, it cannot grasp the veridicality also. Because internal perception, reperception, is a cognition of cognition. Moreover, internal perception being a mental perception, according to Ney, it is incapable of directly grasping an external object. It requires the help of external sense organs. Mana, with regard to the external objects, is not independent. It requires the help of external sense organ. Mana perceives an external port qualified by portness in an ontological relation of inherence via a visual or other external sensory cognition of port, and that cognition acts as the operative relation between mana and port. That is Gyanalakshana Sannikarsa. Through Gyanalakshana Sannikarsa, mana grasps the port. So we can call this cognitive operative relation a type of extrasensory one. Now, abbreviating this position, this Neva position as N, the question arises, NQ1. If the first order cognition's veridicality is not grasped in the internal perception of it, and it is open to doubt, then at least it is open to doubt, at least in some cases, then should we cast a universal skepticism on the possibility of knowing a cognition's veridicality? So is there a scope of universal skepticism regarding knowing the veridicality? My answer is that, of course, not. The total endeavor is to block, as I said earlier, is to block the skepticism of the kind of Nagarjuna and others. So a universal denial of the possibility of knowing veridicality is impossible, since complete denial of veridicality requires a prior understanding of it. A general cognition of the counterpositive, that is object of denial, counterpositive, is required prior to its denial. So the general cognition of the object of denial is required prior to its denial. So universal skepticism is not possible, but limited skepticism of veridicality with regard to a specific type of cognition is possible. Why it is possible? Because cognition is not veridical by default. Veridicality is not natural to cognition. Cognition is not veridical by default. And neither veridicality nor non-veridicality is a universal. Pramatva and apramatva, they both are not universal, not jati. So not natural, not jati. So limited skepticism is possible, but universal skepticism is not especially a cognition occurring in unfamiliar circumstances. Doubt whether the cognition is veridical or not is very common. Next, against this position, another question comes. If the first order cognition's veridicality is not grasped in internal perception of it, but you accept that the veridicality of it can be known, then what is the process? How it is known? My answer is that we repeat. Generally, we need not worry about the certification of a cognition's veridicality for that cognition to be in use by either motivating or demotivating or by being indifferent the cognitive agent to grasp or avoid the object. It is the use of cognition. To motivate or demotivate the cognitive agent to grasp or avoid the object. This use is the public mark of its veridicality and of its own performance, the performance of the cognition. So we need not worry too much about the certification of cognition's veridicality for its performance, how the cognition is performing. It is not also the case that everywhere the certainty about an object comes from the certainty about its cognition's veridicality. It is also not to be accepted that everywhere the certainty about an object comes from the certainty about its cognition's veridicality. There is no necessary connection. Rather, where doubt does not occur concerning veridicality or non-veridicality, the first order cognition, that the original cognition, that is the first order cognition itself, is an ascertainment of its object. Now I also accept that. The first order cognition itself is an ascertainment of its object, where there is no doubt. Just from the cognition of a cake in one's palm, there is an unhesitating effort either to eat it or not to eat it. So there is no question of further certification. But where there is doubt about the first order cognition's veridicality, especially in unfamiliar circumstances, where there is doubt about the first order cognition's veridicality in unfamiliar circumstances, and through that doubt about its object also, we have to determine whether it is veridical or not by means of pragmatic verification, to be confident enough to make unhesitating effort to act. Only in some special cases, in some special cognitions, requires the very pragmatic verification to be confident enough to make unhesitating effort to act. If the veridicality of a cognition, this is water, is doubted in an unfamiliar situation, its veridicality could be asserted only after it is pragmatically verified that the thing beforehand actually quenches thirst, etc. An inference based on this adequate and reliable evidence blocks the doubt and the veridicality of the previous awareness, of the original awareness, is revealed. This cognition of water is veridical since it produces a successful volition leading to a successful action, unlike non-veridical cognitions. This is the inference. The action could have been unsuccessful had it been followed from a non-veridical cognition. Especially what Gangesha is asserting, that in the cognitions occurring in unfamiliar situations, among those cognitions, the first time cognition in an unfamiliar circumstance is a typical one for the doubt regarding its veridicality. So especially when in an unfamiliar circumstance, a thirsty person cognizes, say, water for the first time in that unfamiliar circumstance. There is a debate between Mohanty's interpretation and Phillips and Tatacharya's interpretation about the term prathama. According to the accepted interpretation and refuting Mohanty, Tatacharya and Phillips, they assert that prathama here means the first time cognition of water in an unfamiliar situation. So when in an unfamiliar circumstance, a thirsty person cognizes water for the first time, a doubt in its veridicality is very common. Still, he or she, the person, then hesitatingly proceeds towards the supposed water, because samsaya or doubt also instigates pravritti. He or she then hesitatingly proceeds, but that pravritti would be hesitating. The person hesitatingly proceeds towards the supposed water and finds that it is in fact water and drinks it to quench his or her thirst. The person then argues or infers that had the cognition not been veridical, I would not now be drinking water. But I am drinking water. Hence, the initial cognition of water is or was veridical. This is the structure of Byatirek Anuman. Had the cognition not been veridical, I would not now be drinking water. I am now drinking water. Hence, the initial cognition of water is or was veridical. After this certification, subsequent cognitions of water generate unhesitating effort. Veridicality of the subsequent cognitions, which become habituated, is also inferred since subsequent cognitions are similar to or of the same type of the initial cognition. So for Naiyayikas, habituated cognitions and the veridicality of habituated cognitions are also inferred through the hetu of tajjatiyatta. That is similar to or the same type of the initial cognition. Based on this similarity, we can infer veridicality in case of habituated cognition also. This is the position of later Naiyayikas. Other habituated cognitions veridicality are also inferred. Every morning I see a cup on the table. I see a cup of tea on the table. In order to know that my perception that there is a cup of tea on the table is veridical in such cases, I do not always need confirmatory behavior, because I just go and take it in my hand, drink it, etc. These are not needed. Rather, according to Naya, I infer then and there that the perception that there is a cup of tea on the table is veridical, for it belongs to the same type. It is like others and many others I have had before. So if a cognition C and the likes of C have been proven before to have the property of veridicality, then if another cognition X is like C in essential points, X also has veridicality. This is the form of tajjatiyatta inference, the inference based on tajjatiyatta. That is why veridicality of a cognition, either it is habituated or non-habituated, is always known extrinsically by a cognition other than that which grasps the original first order cognition. Veridicality of a cognition is always known extrinsically. This is the Naya process. Now, a question arises on it. How can you always infer veridicality if you do not have any idea or grasp of it prior to inference? At least in case of unhabituated cognitions, you are confirming veridicality through inference, but you must have some idea of the sadhya to even that inference become possible. So prior cognition of an object is required for it to be used as the probandum of an inference. Naya answer is that it is true. The person who is inferring does know in general what veridicality is. General notion of veridicality is there. And what I have also said in the first slide, the general notion is that non-contradictory confirmation, non-contradictory conformity with the object. This notion of veridicality is always there, but only after the inference, the cognitive agent grasps veridicality of the particular cognition concerned. The inference is required for the particular conception of, or the individualistic conception, particularistic conception of veridicality of a particular cognition. But then question, no, not question on it, another question, another set of question against Naiyayikas arises. Why don't you accept that at least the veridicality grasping inference, what you have accepted, is self-certified? Your teacher, your old teacher Vachaspati also accepted inference as intrinsically veridical. In his Tatparya Tika, Vachaspati accepted inference as intrinsically veridical to stop the infinite series. So otherwise, if you don't accept at least inference as self-certified, there will be an infinite regress of veridicality grasping cognitions. So what would be the Nyaya answer to it? Nyaya says that doubt about veridicality may not arise for various reasons. So inference is required for blocking the doubt. But if doubt about veridicality is very uncommon in normal situation, there are various reasons that doubt about veridicality may not arise. First, Noyayikas accepted that a cognition may remain unregistered or unmanifested. So it may be that the last cognition of the series is not known, is not registered. Then there will be no question of grasping the veridicality of the last cognition. And in the absence of awareness of the veridicality of the last cognition, remembrance of its veridicality is not possible. Since the last cognition's awareness or last cognition's manifestation was not there, memory of its veridicality is also not possible. And in the absence of its memory, doubt is also not possible. So in the absence of awareness of the veridicality of the last cognition, remembrance or memory of its veridicality is not possible. And in the absence of its memory, doubt about veridicality is also not possible. So series of cognitions is stopped. Infinite series is stopped. It is the one way. Next, what would be the way to stop infinite series? It may be that some other object occupies the attention of the cognitive agent and the series ends abruptly. The attention field is grasped by another object, not the object of previous cognition. So the series will automatically end. Or it may be that the experience of pleasure, pain, etc., resulting from the cognition is so forceful that it blocks the series of cognitions. So the experience of pleasure and pain can also block the series of cognitions. So there is no possibility of infinite series according to Nyaya. And second, about Vachaspati's comment, it is clear that Navonoyayikas are not very happy about Vachaspati's cryptic comment on the intrinsic veridicality of inference. Navonoyayikas say that probably Vachaspati wanted to assert that if there is no chance of doubt about the non-veridicality of the cognition of the reason of inference, that reason invariably establishes the probandum. If there is no chance of doubt about the non-veridicality of the cognition of the reason of inference, that is cognition of the hetu, if there is no chance of doubt about the apramatya of the cognition of hetu, that hetu invariably establishes the sadhya. Certain and exceptionless, that is doubtless, connection between the reason, that means probans, and the probandum, hetu and sadhu, invariably confirms its object, what it tries to prove. That is the probandum itself. So the doubtless connection between hetu and sadhu invariably confirms the probandum itself. Nishchit abhyabhicharitatva confirms the probandum itself. That is why inference is said to have intrinsic veridicality, in the sense of without any chance of suspicion of its non-veridicality. If the vyapti abhyabhicharitatva is certain, then there is no chance of the suspicion of its non-veridicality. This was the Nyaya position. Now, here comes the Jaina position. The Jaina position, in answer to the question that does this internal perception grasp its objects, that is first order cognition's veridicality? One answer was that no, never. The second answer was that yes, always. No, so the first answer was yes, always. Second answer, according to Nyaya, was no, never. And the Jaina answer is that sometimes. Sometimes internal perception grasps its object, but not always. Jainas are asserting that first, we have to understand that cognition as cognition with respect to itself is self-aware, self-certified, and always in conformity with itself. Cognition as cognition, it is saprakash. Only with respect to manifestation of objects other than the cognition itself, there is the question of veridicality and non-veridicality of cognition. Only with the ortho, not with the cognition, but with the ortho, with the grasping of ortho, the question of veridicality and non-veridicality comes. In this context, that is, in the context of objects other than cognition itself, a cognition sometimes invariably, in an exceptionless way, conforms with its object so that it never gets contradicted and thus be veridical. Sometimes, but sometimes it does not conform with its object in this way, in this exceptionless, non-contradicted way, and be non-veridical. As cognitions, simply as cognitions, both veridical and non-veridical cognitions are self-aware. But neither veridicality nor non-veridicality neither promatto nor napromatto is a natural property of cognition. Second, veridicality of a habituated cognition is grasped intrinsically. This is the opposition to Nai. Veridicality of a habituated cognition is grasped intrinsically when that cognition is manifested as I have the cognition of X, where X is a habituated object. In the form that I have the cognition of X, where X is a habituated object, the veridicality of it is grasped intrinsically. When Naiyayikas are accepting inference to have intrinsic veridicality, in the sense of without any chance of suspicion of its non-veridicality. We have said that, interpreting Vachaspati, later Naiyayikas are accepting inference to have intrinsic veridicality in the sense of without any chance of doubt of its non-veridicality. Then what is the point of denying that sometimes the cognition which grasps the first order cognition can also grasp its veridicality? Why are you denying it? In fact, we need not even take recourse to infer veridicality of habituated cognitions based upon likeness or being similar. Tajjatiyotto inference based on Tajjatiyotto is not necessary. We don't have to take recourse in case of habituated cognitions for inference to infer its veridicality. Confirmatory knowledge in familiar situation does not stand in need of verification. It is insane to entertain a doubt in the cognition of my own hands and legs. No realist could doubt it. An idealist may doubt it, may term it as dim situation and others. But no realist could doubt the certainty, the veridicality in the cognition of my own hands and legs. So absence of any doubt in these cases shows that the veridicality of habituated cognitions is grasped intrinsically. Third, it is true that veridicality of unhabituated cognitions can be doubted initially and a further confirmation is required. So here Jainas are in agreement with the Naiyayikas. Initially, it cannot be grasped intrinsically. Initial cognition cannot be grasped intrinsically in case of unhabituated cognitions. Inference based on successful effort, as Naiyayikas given, is a reliable confirmatory knowledge, no doubt. But Jainas are asserting that we need not always wait for verification through successful effort. The only way to verify, to confirm the veridicality is practical verification. It is not the case. Inference, it is a good case, a reliable case, but not the only case. Inference based on other grounds is also possible. For example, doubt about veridicality of a cognition of water in an unfamiliar situation can be blocked by an inference based on the moisture in the air and the likes. So an inference based on the moisture in the air, we can infer that there is water nearby. So not always we have to go to the water and touch it and quench my thirst, etc. And verbal testimony from a reliable person is also capable of confirming veridicality. And the problem of infinite series of confirmatory cognitions can be avoided, according to Jainism, by the fact that the veridicality confirmatory cognition itself, by being a habituated one, is intrinsically veridical. So the cognition which confirms veridicality itself is habituated one and intrinsically veridical. Inference based on successful effort is itself habituated, since the fact that the real water quenches thirst has been repeatedly experienced. Thus, the cognition becomes habituated. So in confirmatory knowledge, we in fact reach the end of the line. If the regress which the skeptic points out has to stop anywhere, then it stops here. Veridicality confirmatory cognition itself is intrinsically veridical, and non-veridicality is likewise grasped intrinsically in familiar situations and extrinsically in non-familiar situations. Non-veridical, in case of non-veridicality, they also, Jainas are accepting a kind of onium. There is no strict rule that Shato Pramatto or Aparato Pramatto is to be accepted. In case of non-veridicality, it is also intrinsically grasped in case of in habituated cognitions or familiar situations, and extrinsically in non-familiar situations. So this ends the debate. Next, remember the question number A2Q1. That question was, is this cognition or cognition perceptual? As of now, we are exploring possibilities who have answered this question. Is this cognition or cognition perceptual? Answer this question in affirmation. All these schools which I have covered so far are accepting this. Now, all the schools who are not accepting Saprokas. This is a question of answer 2. Those who are accepting that cognition of cognition is non-perceptual, this is the school of the Bhattas. Prabhakaras accept that self-awareness. Murari accepted perceptual apprehension of the veridicality of the cognition as well as veridicality. But the Bhattas accept that cognition of cognition is not perceptual. So they are answering no. The cognition which grasps the first order cognition is non-perceptual, atindriya. When a cognition reveals its object, it generates a special property cognizedhood, gnatota, in the object itself as its result. The cognizedhood is perceived as a property of the object. Then, on the basis of the fact that the object is cognized, that is, on the basis of the property cognizedhood, gnatota, the original cognition is inferred later. Inference, or for Kumaril and Parthasarathi, it is orthapatti, presumption, not inference. Whatever may be the case, inference or orthapatti is the other. The extrinsic condition which manifests the first order cognition, not mental perception, not internal perception. So the extrinsic condition is inference, which manifests the original first order cognition, not mental perception. So cognition is neither self-aware nor internally perceived. So it is grasped only through inference, according to Bhatto. The question on this position arises that does this inference based on cognizedhood or presumption or orthapatti? Orthapatti here is also based on cognizedhood, but it is not inference according to Kumaril Bhatto and Partha Mishra. Inference is accepted by Sabara, Tika Mimamsa Bhaskar, but Kumaril accepted orthapatti in this cognition of cognition. As the cognition of cognition, Kumaril and Partha Mishra also accepted orthapatti, but the line is almost same. And since Noyayikas are delegating orthapatti into Vatirek inference, so they are always citing inference as the cognition of cognition in case of Bhatto. But in case of presumption orthapatti also, it is also based on cognizedhood. So the moot point here will not divert if we accept orthapatti also. But the question is, does this inference based on cognizedhood grasp the first order cognition's veridicality? Bhatto answers it in affirmative. Yes, in the same inference or presumption, both the cognition and its veridicality are revealed. Veridicality is the nature of cognition. Veridicality is the nature of cognition. They are inseparable. So the cognition which reveals its object and produces cognizedhood in it is itself veridical. But since cognition is not self-aware, cognition is not auto-manifesting and cannot be grasped by perception, it is revealed with its veridicality by an inference or presumption based on its result, that is based on cognizedhood. So Bhattas are also accepting that veridicality is the nature of cognition. Veridicality is grasped when the cognition is grasped, but the other factor, not other, but other than the perception. The factor is other than the mental perception. That is inference. So here is the specific formulation of the theory of Pramāṇya about the cognition of veridicality. Whatever exposes or reveals a cognition exposes it also by the same token as a piece of veridical cognition. Whatever exposes a cognition exposes it also as a piece of veridical cognition. A cognition's veridicality is grasped invariably through the collection of causal conditions that grasp the cognition but not its non-veridicality. Veridicality is an intrinsic quality of awareness, natural to it, and when an awareness is exposed, revealed to the knower, its veridicality is also revealed thereby. So to register a cognition is to register it as veridical. This formulation allows differences of opinion among the Mīmāṅsaka supporters of Pramāṇya regarding how a cognition is revealed. The opposite to it is the theory of Pramāṇya. We have also gone through the Nyaya position. Supporters of it assert that if veridicality were grasped intrinsically, then doubt about veridicality in an unhabituated cognition would be impossible. This is the criticism of Prāmāṇyavāda to the Pramāṇya. Doubt about veridicality in an unhabituated cognition would be impossible, since given that the cognition is grasped, there would be certainty about its veridicality, according to Pramāṇya theory. If we accept Pramāṇya theory, doubt about veridicality in unhabituated cognition is pretty common. One of the factors for doubt about a property is to happen. One of the factors for doubt about a property to happen is the certain cognition of the property bearer. Certain cognition of dharmi is required for the doubt about property. Now, the property bearer of veridicality is the cognition itself. Hence, if with the certain revelation of cognition, if the certain manifestation of cognition, its veridicality is also revealed at the same time, that is, if Pramāṇyavāda is accepted, any doubt about its veridicality would be an impossibility. And if the property bearer, that is the cognition, the dharmi of Pramatva is the Gyan itself, if the property bearer cognition is not grasped, then with the absence of certain cognition of the property bearer itself, any doubt about the property, that is, any doubt about the veridicality, would also be absent. If there is absence of the nishchaya regarding dharmi, nishchaya of dharmi, then samshaya about the dharma will also be absent. Without the nishchaya of dharmi, samshaya of dharma will not be possible. The main difference between Nyaya and the Mīmāṅsakas in this debate is that, according to Mīmāṅsakas, doubt is restricted to first order objects, not to cognitions that have objects. Because veridicality for them is always natural to cognition. So according to the Mīmāṅsakas, veridicality grasping is honorific only, is only additional, because veridicality is natural to cognitions and doubt is restricted to objects, first order objects, not to cognitions. But of course, Naiyayikas would say that both the veridicality and non-veridicality is both are the accidental property of cognition, not natural to it. Jaina philosophers here criticize the Bhatta position by saying that veridicality cannot be not only Bharta, but the Satapramana position, that veridicality cannot be natural to all cognitions when its object is other than cognition. If the object of the cognition is other than cognition, then veridicality cannot be natural. Only if the cognition itself is the object, veridicality can be natural, or veridicality is the intrinsic. But if the object is other than cognition, veridicality cannot be natural. If it were, then there would not be any dispute about it. If each and every cognition is registered in the cognitive agent as veridical, then there would not be so much dispute on it. And in non-familiar situations, doubt about veridicality is a commonality. We should accept it, and it generally transfers into a doubt about objects. So they are also saying that doubt about the veridicality of a cognition is possible in non-familiar situations, and it naturally transfers into a doubt about the artha, about the object, in non-familiar, unhabituated cases. So this is the familiar groupings, the familiar chart, who accepted Satapramanya and Paratapramanya in Indian philosophy. Satapramanya is accepted by Shankho, Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Jaina. Paratapramanya is also accepted by Jaina and Nyaya and a section of Buddha. Shato Apramanya is accepted by Shankha, Buddha, a section of Buddha, and Jaina. Parato Apramanya is accepted by Nyaya, Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Jain. Shato Pramanya, Shankho, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Jaina. Parato Pramanya, Nyaya, Buddha, a section of Buddha and Jaina. Shato Apramanya, Shankho, Buddha, and Jaina. Parato Apramanya, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Jaina. So Jaina, they are everywhere. In case of Gopti, in case of cognition of Pramanya. Mimamsaka accepted Satapramanya but Parato Apramanya, and a section of Buddhists accepted Parato Pramanya but Sato Apramanya. And this list accounts for the theories regarding genesis of veridicality and non-veridicality also. This list is common both in Goptipaksha and Utpattipaksha, but except for the Jainas. Jainas accept extrinsic Parata genesis of both veridicality and non-veridicality. So, according to Jainism, in Gopti Paksha, they accept both Satapramanya and Paratapramanya, but in Utpatti Paksha, they accept only Parata, both Paratapramanya and Parata Apramanya. This is the difference from other schools. Now, to wrap it up with the Utpatti Paksha, supporters of the theory of Satapramanya with regard to the genesis of veridicality, Utpatti, hold that veridicality characterizes an awareness naturally, unaided by anything else or by itself. Sata. So the set of causal conditions that generates an awareness is the same that would either straightaway deliver a vertical awareness. Prabhakar, according to Prabhakar, the knowledge, the knowledge and awareness is always veridical. The Utpadaka samagri produces a cognition as a piece of prama. So the set of causal conditions that generates an awareness is the same that straight away delivered a veridical awareness, straight away produces a prama. That is the Pravakar position. Or with a proviso that no extrinsic destructive causal factors intervene. This is the Bhatta position. So from the same set of causal condition that generates an awareness also generates Pramanya. But either it straight away produces a prama, or with a proviso that there must not be any defect, any defective causal factor. If there is no defect, then prama will ensue. So for the Pravakaras, an awareness never fails to be a veridical awareness, and non-veridicality characterizes only usages, vyavahara of awareness, due to the non-apprehension of difference between two veridical awarenesses. This is the Akhyativada. Non-veridicality characterizes only vyavahara, not the cognition. And it is due to the Vedagraha of two veridical awarenesses. But for the Bhattas, absence of any defective causal factor in the set of awareness generating causal conditions would naturally lead to generating its veridicality. But if there is any intervention of defective causal factor in the set of awareness generating causal conditions, then it would lead to generating non-veridicality in it. So Bhattas are accepting that dosha or defects is the culprit for generating non-veridicality, and absence of the defects must be there for any causal factor or any awareness generating causal conditions to produce the veridicality. So if there is any intervention of defective causal factor in the set of awareness generating causal conditions, then it would lead to generating non-veridicality in it. This is the Bhatta position. This failure is due to the additional and extraneous defective factors, and hence non-veridicality is generated extrinsically. Parata. Such contaminating factors may not supposedly be allowed to intervene or interfere, and then awareness with its veridicality will automatically shine forth. For the Bhattas, the so-called defects, dosas, in the causal mechanism deterred, so to say, the natural genesis of an awareness as veridical. So, dosa and dosa bhava. Dosa is the external factor, the extrinsic factor for producing non-veridicality. Supporters of the theory of Parada Pramāṇya with regard to the genesis of veridicality hold that veridicality is a contingent characteristic of an awareness, not a necessary or a natural one. So the set of causal factors that produces the awareness must be compounded with other extrinsic causal factors or conditions to generate the property, either veridicality or non-veridicality in that awareness. If the set of causal conditions that gives rise to awareness additionally includes a special or meritorious causal factor, guna, then that additional factor generates the property of veridicality in that awareness and turn that awareness into either a veridical perception or a veridical inference or a veridical analogy or a veridical and verbal understanding, depending on the presence of particular merits, particular epistemic excellence, guna. Depending on the particular epistemic excellence, particular type of prama would be generated. If the set of causal conditions that gives rise to awareness additionally includes a defective factor, dosha, then that additional factor generates the property of non-veridicality in that awareness and turn that event, that cognitive event, into an illusion, either an illusion or a doubt or a special type of hypothetical reasoning called torko. So dosha is responsible for producing either biporjoy or samshay or torko. The epistemic excellence, that is guna, with regard to the perception of the whole, according to what are the epistemic excellences? This is the Naya view. The epistemic excellence with regard to the perception of the whole, the abhayavi, perception of the abhayavi is repeatedly established operative relations of the sense organ with the parts. And with regard to inference, the paramarsa. With regard to analogy, cognition of similarity. With regard to verbal understanding, cognition of yogyata and or tatparya. In all cases, the epistemic excellences must be construed as the property related to the substantive. That means excellences, these excellences, that is the sannikarsa or the paramarsa or the sadrishya gyan, these excellences must be grasped veridically. These gunas must be known veridically. This is necessary. Mere guna will not do. The cognition, the veridical, the cognition of the guna is required also. There is a debate between Bhattas and Naiyayikas regarding whether mere admission of the absence of defects be enough for the production of prama, for the production of veridical cognition. Whether dosa bhava is enough for the production of veridical cognition is a debate between Bhatta and Naiyayikas. Bhattas insists that Naiyayikas need not admit separate epistemic excellence apart from the absences of defects. But Naiyayikas hold that accepting an epistemic excellence would be parsimonious to accepting innumerable absences of defects. Defects are many and lack uniformity. So absences of defects would also be innumerable. Moreover, Naiyayikas argue that if absences of defects are to be admitted instead of epistemic excellence, or even in addition to epistemic excellence, in cases of prama, then Bhattas too need to admit absence of epistemic excellence instead of defects, or in addition to defects, in the set of causal conditions for generation of non-veridical cognitions. So Bhatta should also admit, if we admit dosa bhava, Bhatta should also admit guna bhava, either in addition to defect or instead of defect. Acceptance of intrinsic genesis of veridicality and extrinsic genesis of non-veridicality leads to an incompatible position. This is the Nyaya criticism, that Mimamsakas accept intrinsic genesis of veridicality and extrinsic genesis of non-veridicality. It leads to an incompatible position. So there is no deciding argument in favor of the Bhattas. Hence, the epistemic virtue of parsimony, the Laghava, it is an epistemic virtue that justifies the Nyaya position. This is the Nyaya defense. Jainas to admit extrinsic genesis of both veridicality and non-veridicality and accept epistemic excellences and defects as the extrinsic factors. So they are also accepting guna and dosa as the extrinsic factor. Jainas argue that if, as the Mimamsakas admit, the dosas are real and can be known, but Mimamsakas admit that dosas are real in case of aprama and it can be known, then there is no reason why the gunas should not be real and cognizable in a likewise manner. If it be said that the dosas or defects located in the sense organs are perceived as real, it may be argued that the gunas also so located may be perceived as real. If the dosas of the sense organs are accepted as real, then gunas of sense organ must also be accepted as real. Jainas are ready to admit clarity, nirmalata, as an epistemic excellence, guna of the sense organ. The clarity or nirmalata is not mere the absence of dosha. They argue that the same visual sense organ contaminated by defects produces non-veridical cognition, and when it is endowed with an epistemic excellence of clarity, of nirmalata, then it generates veridical cognition. So both pramanya and apramanya, in case of their genesis, they are extrinsically generated. This is the Jaina position. So thank you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am taking Nirmalu's place because he had to go somewhere. I am extremely grateful to Dr. Tamogna Sarkar for agreeing to speak here on Prāmāṇyavāda and with special reference to Jainism. As usual, Dr. Sarkar has made an extremely meticulous, rigorous exposition of all the different varieties of Prāmāṇyavāda, both in the Gopti and the Utpotti Pokho, and he has also raised all the different questions that remain unanswered by all the different positions, and how the Jaina thesis may have a rather special place in this entire debate. So I thank you, Tamogna, once again, and I would now open this lecture for discussion. Please do come forward with your questions, and do not hesitate to ask any question, whatever comes to your mind.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I need one clarification at the beginning of your lecture regarding the cases of unhabituated cognition, anubhavashayo, from the talked about the veridicality of. Okay.
Unhabituated cognition means the cognition arising in anubhas dosha, unfamiliar situation.
So in that case, from Nyaya point of view, is veridicality of a first order cognition is happening?
Veridicality is happening. The point is whether the veridicality is registered, is known.
Yes.
Noyayika position is that is that in the mental perception, in the internal perception of it, of the cognition, of the first order cognition, its veridicality cannot be grasped.
Okay.
In the Anubhyavasaya, though Anubhyavasaya internal perception grasps the cognition, the first order cognition, it cannot grasp the veridicality of that original cognition.
Okay.
That is why it is Poroto.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
And there is, I have given at least 4 or 5 reasons, 4 or 5 arguments in favor of Nyaya, why they are thinking so.
Okay.
Why they are arguing that veridicality cannot be grasped in Anubhyavasaya. So please go through my lecture.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
What I have raised, the fourth point, the fourth argument is that mind, being an internal organ, cannot grasp the factual relatedness of the property and the property possessor, and the factual relatedness is the determinant of proma. This is the promaktma sambandha.
Right.
In Anubhyavasaya, it cannot be grasped because the immediate object of the Anubhyavasaya is a cognition.
Is the knowledge.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Tamogna, once
Thank you,
again.
Didi.
Yes, for being with us. You were there in the Western philosophy course as well as this course. And we have all greatly enjoyed your lectures both there and here. And we hope to have you with us again. And please do visit the BRC library once.
Okay, of course.
Thank you. And thank you, participants, for being here. Tomorrow we have the second day of our course on Indian philosophy, and it starts at 11. So see you all tomorrow, and thank you, Tamogna. Namaskar.